Okay. Well, I will officially start since the recording is in progress. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our Zoom class where we're painting the pumpkins. Hopefully the light will be okay for you. If it's hard to see, please let me know. There should also be like a comment box for you if you don't feel comfortable showing your face or talking. At the end of these, I do like to do a group picture. So if you're not watching not with us live and you do it later, I would love for you to email me a picture of your completed picture, just because it's really fun to share those things and to have them. My name is Becky. I don't know if I said that. We will be painting the two pumpkins, and of course your kits came with the colors that they that you chose. However, if you have other colors at home, you're welcome to use those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and sneak them back here so well, the easel's kind of in the way, but we will reference them throughout. You should also have, like, if you got a kit, a couple people did not purchase kits, but if you got a kit, oops, someone is joining, hold on a second. Then you should be able to have kind of a picture here. And I bet there's probably a way for me to add a picture. This is one of those things where I wished I was a little bit more in tune with the Zoom itself. So, but I don't want to ruin anything trying to do that. So, but yeah, that's kind of how that goes. So, welcome. So we actually had like 25 people sign up for this class, which is very exciting. And maybe half of you will be watching a recording, and the other part of you are with us live from all across the United States. And also thank you to Sarah, who is joining us from the hospice group, who also helps plan these events and shares them with their clients. And they did have a name change. And Sarah, I don't know if you wanted to say anything, because I can't remember what your name is. The name
That's fair. So we were Heartland Hospice for a long time, and last month we actually switched to ProMedica Hospice.
Okay.
Yeah, so thanks for the shout.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, and we just kind of thought about this idea for people who have lost a loved one on service, just a nice way to relax and to express yourself. So thank you so much, Becky, for putting this on.
You're welcome. I'm happy to. And hospice, I mean, my dad went through hospice, and so I understand that doing art and just spending time with other people, even if it's through a Zoom class, can be helpful, because it's hard after a loss. And, to be able to do something with people who've gone through something similar can really do a lot of healing to the heart. So we are going to have fun creating some fall pumpkins together. Oh, now that I'm thinking about it, I apologize, because I'm going to say the name of that little device so if you have one, just be prepared. Alexa, pause. Sorry. Normally when I would do that, then everyone would start doing things. So, because I'll be posting this as a YouTube link, sometimes YouTube can be really weird about the music that gets played in the background of things, which is kind of a weird thing. So, but okay. So what we should have is you should have your canvas. Now I have 2 of them. I'm going to attempt to paint 2 of them, just because you might be doing this one versus this one. And then they are kind of back there. Wish I could get them to hang up here, but I don't know if they'll really stay right there. So we'll have them right here, but we'll reference them every so often. What I will do is actually, so for everyone except for myself, I think I've muted, everyone is muted as of right now. If you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question. And there'll be certain times where I'm waiting just for most of the group to kind of get to where I'm at. And so I'll ask you for like a thumbs up, or you can use the comment section to type that you're ready to go, or you can use an emoji or something like that. So, but yeah, so you should have at least a paper towel. Oh, paper towel. Now, I do include popsicle sticks with the kits, just it's helpful to pull the paint out of the little containers. And I like to do that because specifically like with our white, we will be using the white for different parts of the painting. So you don't want to get like brown or black into your white yet, because you're going to want it to stay white in the jar for the parts that we're doing the highlights with at the very end. You should also have I use a sponge. These are basically just those types of like egg carton bed things that I cut up because I go through a lot of sponges. But I will be using the flat side of the sponge. So really any kind of sponge that you have at home will be fine for this, as long as it's like a soft, squishy sponge. You don't want the kind that is hard unless you add water to it, just because these ones just work a little bit better. You should also have a couple paint brushes. Now, before we start painting, it's always a good idea to just kind of pull up on the paint brushes in case there's any crazy hairs or loose hairs. That way the hair won't come off in your painting. Now, you know, I don't purchase super expensive ones, so I can keep the cost low to you. So you might end up with like a round brush like mine that has some wild hairs that are just sticking out and crazy. I don't know if you can see that on mine or not. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab a scissors and I'm just going to clip it off really close to this metal part. So just 1 second while I grab scissors. So I have these crazy hairs and I'm just going to get nice and close to the metal piece and I'm just going to snip it. So now I have some crazy snips close down here, but the point is still, it looks much nicer now. It will be much nicer to use. Just little tips for cheap brushes. Then your cup of water, you should also have a little piece of chalk. Now, if you're not providing your own supplies or if chalk bothers you to use, you could use a pencil. The nice thing about chalk though, is it does absorb into the paint, so we don't have to worry about erasing things. And when we're doing our chevron, it will be, we're going to be doing basically like a grid on here to help us get our chevron look. It's a super easy way to do it, but it is like a lot of marking that will be happening. So kind of keep that in mind. So if you're using a pencil, very, very light marks you want to make. And then you should also have a piece of palette paper. There should be a shinier side. If you put the paint on that side, that's what I like to do, is put it on the shinier side. You can also use a paper plate. If you have a foam plate, that's the best, because paper plates, the paint will absorb into the plate. I don't know, but you can use this. You don't have to use it. Do whatever you want to. You get to have fun and just create and have fun with us. And all right. So, and I do have one rule before we begin. And it has to do with the jar. So this is what you might have heard of, like the swear jar, if you're around my age, where you're not allowed to cuss or anything like that. Well, this is what we call the I hate my painting jar, where I like to tell people that you are not allowed to talk bad about yourself or your artistic ability while we are creating tonight, because we can have fun. Painting can feel stressful if you allow it to be, but it should be fun. And so I really challenge you tonight to not say those bad things to yourself, because we're not together in the same space, but we're together here. So if you can just use opposite words, if you're having a really hard time, like, this is so wonderful, I'm doing great. Even if you think that you want to throw it in the garbage, just tell yourself that, because at the end, I'm pretty sure you're going to feel proud of what you've created. And a lot of times when we're painting step by step, it's very easy to feel critical about your painting, but allow yourself some grace tonight. It's the trust the process thing. And I know, trust the process. Like, you hate to hear it, but a lot of it is true. So once we're finished and we have the whole picture here, then it will, I think that you should feel proud. I just do. And I will feel proud. I'm like the art mom, you know? So the jar, if you have a jar around, this little tip might help you at home. And sometimes at my own house, I have like a little salsa jar that I'll use. This was probably a spaghetti jar, like spaghetti sauce jar at one point, but just remember the jar, the I hate my painting jar. Don't have that mindset. We're going to be positive and we're going to have fun. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to cover the back of our canvas. Now you can also do this however you want to. If you don't want to do the chevron, you don't have to. You can, you know, make your own design kind of thing. But what we're going to do first is we're going to take our sponge and we're going to dip it into the water. I'm going to just submerge the whole thing. But then I'm going to squeeze the life out of it because I don't want there to be any real water on there. I just want it to have some moisture. So make sure when you squeeze it that you're not getting any moisture. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my white paint and I am going to scoop out some onto my palette paper. And I would say, like, if you just start with just a good, like, get yourself a good scoop. Because a little bit will go a long ways for the background, especially the way that we're putting it on. So you've just really just put one scoop out. Then with your white paint, put the cap back on it so it stays nice and fresh till the next time you need it. Now, if you are going to be using, if you're going to be doing the brown background, you're going to take your brown paint and you're going to take a scoop out. You don't have to take a whole lot because we're going to be creating a light brown background. And if you are doing the black or the gray background, what you're going to do is you are going to take your black and you're just going to pull out a little scoop. Don't take a whole lot. The black, a little bit goes a very long way. So I'm just going to pull just a scoop out. Now, I like to tell people in the studio that try to keep your paint in its designated area because you're going to want to have room for your other colors on your little palette thing too, which can be kind of hard, but that's just, of course, you're at home, so you probably have paper plates or things too, but that's what I like to do. Okay. Now, the process is the same for both paintings. So we're going to take our wet sponge, and what I like to do is I'll kind of hold it in a way, like I hold it where the texture is. And then I want you to just listen at first so you can hear how I'm pressing on the canvas. So I push kind of hard. And I don't mix. So we got someone just joining us. So welcome. So I don't mix the colors on the little palette. So I'm going to take my sponge and I'm going to start by dipping it in the white. So regardless of which color you're going to do, you're going to dip it into the white. And then I like to work in sections. So I'm going to, for example, I'm going to take the white and I'm just going to kind of rub it around. You don't want it to be really thick. You want to spread it out, but only in this corner. So you're just taking the white and you're just spreading it out in that little corner. And then before it dries, so while it's still wet, you're going to take your same sponge and do a little dip into the brown. And we're going to go right where that white was. And we're just going to start kind of putting it on. Now you might see the little white canvas through that, but this is going to help us get good coverage that will dry quickly. Now you can also cover the edges as you go. So I'm going to just take my sponge and cover the edges. Now don't keep rubbing over the same spot over and over. Smooth it out so it's not really thick there. So you can move the paint to places where there is no paint yet. But, you know, I'm gonna grab more paint to continue covering this. So from here, I'm gonna take my sponge that I've already done some brown on, and I'm gonna dip it back into the white. And now I'm gonna move to the next open area and start putting some white down. So I'm just kind of gonna go back and forth between white and brown. Going into the brown, I just did a little bit, but also moving it to places where there is no paint yet. Grab a little bit more brown, go right over that white, and just kind of blend it all together. We want it to be a lighter brown or lighter gray, because we want the black and the brown to be their natural colors, like that you actually see. So we want it to be a little bit lighter. Now, a little bit is gonna go a long way, but we're gonna cover the entire canvas. Some people like to do their edges. So you can do all of your edges, usually with just like a sweep. You can do the whole edge like that. And I'm just gonna go back and forth between white and brown, or white and black, and just cover the whole thing. And then just make sure that you move it so it's not really thick. If it's really thick in places, just move that paint to places where there is no paint yet. You can kind of just smooth it out if you want to, because we're going to cover most of that up with other stuff anyway. And you might see like the brush strokes or the lines of where you are, you know, where you put the paint, but that's okay. The hardest thing to do is after you cover it, just to let it dry. That's the hardest thing. So I'm going to do this one here. I got brown. I'm going to do this gray one. So we'll just go ahead and cover your whole canvas, just using a little bit of the white and then a little bit of the color. Please, because everyone is muted as of now, just if you have a question and you need help or something, just unmute yourself and ask your question. Totally fine. There should be a little button that can unmute you.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
How do I make you big?
So at the very top of the black part, there should be an option that says view. So you might have to touch the screen and then it will come up. It says view with like a bunch of little dots. If you click that view, it will allow you to look at the speaker. Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna grab it. I gotta grab another sponge so I can do this one. Oh, and if I didn't say it yet, you only have to dip in the water once. So don't dip in the water every time. Just that first time, dip your sponge in the water and then squeeze the life out of it. When you're all the way finished, my suggestion is, because I reuse these a lot in the studio. You could probably get a good 3-4 uses out of one sponge if you wanted to. So when you're finished, I would suggest just taking this to the sink and just rinsing it off. And then you can wash your hands too, because you can get kind of messy when you're painting, but that's the fun of painting. If it does start to get a little too dark, you can just take more white and go over it and then just spread it out, because my black kind of dark that first time. The reason that I started using sponges, and I do this like in the studio also, is because with the texture of the canvas, a lot of times people have a hard time using enough paint to fill in the texture, but then they're using too much paint because they're like overcompensating. And so using a sponge is a nice way where you can add it and smooth it out. And there still can be some brush strokes that show when you're using the sponge, but it's getting into the texture and it's covering it. But acrylic paint also dries really fast. So this way it will dry in a matter of minutes. So hopefully once you're finished, the hardest thing to do is to just let it be, and then give yourself a quick little break, go wash out your sponge, go to the bathroom, grab a drink if you need to, take a bite of something yummy if you have it on hand, and then we'll continue with our next step. So you do have a couple minutes, so while we're waiting too, if anyone wanted to chat or pop on and say hello, you're more than welcome to.
What
You're muted.
happened?
Did you use too much water?
Okay. Can I fix it?
If you let it dry. So is it really wet in certain spots?
No,
No?
it's not wet at all. But
Oh.
it streaked on me. See?
So
Like right there.
right there. So I would suggest yeah, that's kind of weird. I would say just
I
let it.
know it.
I know, I
Hey,
can
look at
see.
that.
Mine
Yeah.
kind of did the same thing. And I think I just didn't stop soon enough. I just kept rubbing until I rubbed too much.
Okay.
Does that
Yes.
sound?
Yes, because sometimes if it's in the process of drying and you're going over it, then, so just let it dry as is. And then if you need to do another quick layer before we start our next step, that's okay. But I would just let it dry. So don't mess with it anymore. So I'm gonna go wash out my sponges. I'll be back in just a minute. One thing I also like to say, I mean, I love chatting too. And I don't mind talking some personal chatting because, it's fun to talk with people, but just keep in mind that this is being recorded. So you don't want to say anything that you want saved forever, which I probably will, because sometimes I don't have a filter. Like I forget that, but it is so much fun I just love these classes. I know I should do them more. The problem that I run into is I just don't have time to pack kits more often so I think the last one we did was in July. So this one actually was like a little longer. Normally we've been doing it like every other month, but I like the every other month thing. I did have a lot of people who wanted to do the crazy black cat that I have. So I was thinking about maybe just doing one, but I don't know. It's so hard.
So should I go over it again if it's dry, Becky?
If it's dry, you could, if you wanted to, you could try it. Try not to scrub too much, but try taking your white and just doing a little bit over there and then a little bit of the brown and see what happens. And I just want to see, I'm going to just look at my little sheet here. I have a pen. Oh, okay. So the chat. So sorry here. Yes, you can keep the streaks. If you like the streaks, you can totally keep them. So that's awesome. Yes. And I just want to do a little quick shout out. Tabby was the very first person to sign up for this class. So yay.
Yeah, I really like art.
Good. Well, I'm happy that you're here. And she is joining us from South Carolina, which is pretty awesome. Everyone is actually, well, not everyone, but Dory is joining us from Florida, which is cool. She's on vacation right now. So I actually shipped her kit to like a resort. So you can get kits shipped anywhere.
It's pouring down rain here in Florida.
Oh, well, this is a good thing to do when you're indoors. I will say our weather here today has been like, it poured this morning and then it got to be a beautiful sunny day and then it poured again. And now like it's a beautiful evening. So it's fall for sure. It's fall. I'm just looking at the names here to see who we have. Sarah, who is joining us, she with the hospice, she is from Plover, which is just very close. It's like 20 minutes away. And is that Carrie is joining us from Oklahoma. So that's exciting. And I'm just looking here. Sandy is joining us from Kansas. Is that right? Yes. Okay. And Reagan is maybe one of our youngest attendees. She is more local. She is from Rudolph, Wisconsin, which is like 10 minutes away from where we are, where I am. And Jean, I believe this is the Jean who is from Stevens Point, which is about 30 minutes away from here. And let's see, Dawn is joining us. And Dawn, oh my goodness, I didn't write down where you live because I didn't have to send you a kit because you, so but I'm gonna look it up really quick because I have access.
I'm in Florida.
Oh, she's in Florida too. Okay, perfect. So, well, I'm so glad that you guys all joined. I think I got everyone. Hopefully you don't mind that I shared that. I just think it's so cool. All right. Dory, did that work to get rid of those streaks? Okay, perfect. So what we're gonna do next, oh yes, what we're gonna do next is we are going to do our chevron. Now, if you don't wanna do the chevron, you don't have to. But this is how we're gonna do it. So I'm gonna take my chalk and based on how many chevron streaks you want. So on this one going this way, I did 3. So 1, 2, 3. On this one, I did a bunch because it was going the long way. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but you can't really see all of them because they're behind the pumpkin. So I am going to explain first the process using the brown one. So that way you can kind of see how it goes and you can decide then how you want to do it on your black one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to just kind of draw this little, it's kind of like I'm going to draw a graph. So I'm going to draw 3 lines with my chalk that are going to go all the way across the canvas. kind of like that. You can see that. Where my tripod is, it is casting a shadow. I see that, so hopefully you guys will be able to see that. And then what I'm going to do is based on the amount of points that you want. This one actually has like 2 points, but you could make more if you wanted to. This I'm going to do where I'm going to draw a line that's going to go from the top down. Maybe I'll do like 3, kind of like that. It's not like perfectly even, but it looks good on the painting. So if perfectly even is something you need, then you can do that if you want to. And then from here, what I'm going to do is each of these lines is going to be the start of our chevron. So I'm basically going to start a line here and I'm going to go up, down, kind of like that. And then the next line, this one is going to go from here. It's going to go all the way up to here, to that line, and it's going to come down. Now, if you are going off of the edge over here, make sure that it's kind of going off. This one down here is going to do the same thing. Now, technically, there should be some, see how each of these has kind of a point on it. So this one doesn't have one. So there's nowhere for this to connect, but I'm still going to draw. It's almost like an arrow, like pretend that it's there, if that makes sense. Now with the black one, because you're doing more, it's almost easier to like start in the middle, unless, I'm so sorry because I'm doing this delayed. I should have maybe done this one first, but I'm going to just start in the middle and do a line across. And then, so mine right now, it might not look exactly the same as that one, just because every time I create, it's going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to just kind of draw these lines. So they're kind of the same. Equal widths apart. Like that. And then I'm going to do probably get maybe one more over here, right at the end. And then I don't start at the top one yet. I'm going to start where there's like a whole one, because this is just going to be the top of one. So it's just going to go. And now this one here, I'm going to have the start of it down here, but the top isn't going to be there. So then it's going to kind of come down like that. And you could even put like your little points. Wait. Nope, nothing in there. Wait, yes, there would be something here. I'm sorry. And over here, but not right there. Does that make sense? Okay. So on this last Friday, I did this class in the studio here. And I should say, first of all, my mom and my aunts were here. And sometimes when family is here, it's different, you know, and they could not figure this out. So I do apologize, which did make me a little nervous for tonight, but I'm hoping that if you're not figuring this out, let me know, because you could just draw up and downs across if you want to. So once we're at this point, what we're going to do now is we're going to draw our pumpkin, but we're going to be drawing it over our chalk marks, because we're going to then erase the chalk marks that are inside of our pumpkin. So it might be a little tricky at first because we're going to be drawing over a drawing, but I'm going to show you first of all where you're going to put your pumpkins on these. So if you have followed me on TikTok, I did do a tutorial on how to draw pumpkins. So we're going to draw it really similar to that, but you kind of want to know how big it should be. So with the black one, the pumpkin itself is going to go, so you want to visualize about halfway up your canvas. So you want to kind of visualize halfway up. Now, for me to visually do it, I'm going to put a little check right there. I'm going to do this so I don't have to keep, hopefully that will make things better. Hold on a second. There we go. So about half of my canvas is right about here. And it goes all the way down to the bottom, but it doesn't go off of the bottom. So I'm just going to put like a little check right there at the bottom. So it's going to be about that big. Now, if you're doing the other, so this one here, you want your pumpkin to go up to the halfway mark, but you want to actually go up a little bit more. So visually look to see where your halfway mark is, which is kind of on this line is where I put it, but I'm going to go up a little bit more and just do a little check here. And then at the very bottom, I'm also going to do just a little line like that. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to draw an oval in the middle of like going from the top to here. It's not going to go way out here though, because we're not drawing the entire pumpkin. We're just drawing the center part. So I'm going to just draw an O, like the letter O, like that. And over here, oops, a letter O. This one can be a little bit wider than this one. So this one's kind of taller and skinny, and this one is a little bit wider, but you can make it whatever you need it to be. And then what I'm going to do on both of them, but you're going to kind of be at the top and you're going to bring it down just a little bit. So you're going to kind of come down the edge just a little bit, and you're going to draw the letter C. And this is not going to take you all the way off the end unless you want your pumpkin to go all the way off, but the letter C. So you're going to go down, and then at the bottom part here, you're going to go up. So it's going to look like the letter C. So you'll have like a little point triangle down here. Same with the brown one. You're going to come down your circle a little bit, and then you're going to draw. Now this is kind of a bigger fat C. And it's going to come up again at the bottom. So don't forget to do this curve here and a curve at the bottom. And then we're going to do a backwards C. So start at the top and kind of curve your way down the circle a little bit. Backwards C. Remember to bring it up at the bottom. Backwards C. Bring it up at the bottom. Now, if your pumpkin is up a little bit, so the bottom is like, so it's kind of floating, that's okay. If you want your pumpkin to be floating, it can be, but just remember that. Then later you might want to put some extra black down there, but for most of us, we're able to, like later we'll fill that part in black, but we're just gonna keep it like this. So once you have this part drawn, what you're gonna do is take your, I'm just gonna take my paper towel, I'm just gonna tear off just a little piece. And I'm just gonna dip a little bit into the water. You don't want it to be super wet. You just wanna get it a little bit damp. And then you can just take that and you can wipe out the chalk marks inside of your pumpkin. Then if you need to make any adjustments to the shape of your pumpkin, it's a little bit easier to do when it's not drawn over all of those other lines. And the reason I like to chalk things out like this is it just helps your brain know what you're going to do. And it just helps you feel a little bit more confident about painting. And just remember that when you're painting pumpkins, they might grow a little bit as we're fixing edges, and pumpkins in the wild are not perfect. So you don't need to have a perfect pumpkin. And some people might tell you that pumpkins don't look like this, but oh, this is like the heaviest pumpkin in the world. But this is kind of like the type of pumpkin that we're drawing. Is, see, there's the oval right here, and then it's the letter C and the backwards C. This pumpkin literally weighs like, I don't know, 20 pounds. It's so heavy. But there's also pumpkins that are more round in shape. So if you would prefer to do more of a round pumpkin versus the O and the C, you can totally do that. So this is your pumpkin, but I just like to kind of show the different examples. Every time, like every year when I see a pumpkin like this, I always buy it because it's just so cool. And it's not perfect because you look at the backside, it's icky. So it's okay if your pumpkin looks icky because it will just look more realistic. Man, I'm out of breath just lifting up that pumpkin. I apologize for that. Okay. All right. So are you guys at this point? Are you good? Good. Okay, perfect. I hope you are. I guess the people I can see, they were like, yeah, we are. So I'm going to kind of assume everyone is there. Okay. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we are actually going to be working on our chevron lines. So I just want to show you though, really quick. I did not work to create perfect edges. And later, we're going to be doing some like white and little purple over there to kind of help fix any edges that aren't perfect. Okay. Same with the brown one. On this one, we're going to be putting some teal and black and white over there. We're not doing it now, but again, the edges don't need to be perfect. How I like to do this is I like to keep it kind of wispy. So I'm going to use my flat brush. So you're going to grab your flat brush. Now, if you still have some of the paint, either the black or the brown on your palette paper, you can use this. If you used all of that, because we're just using the pure color at this point, you can dip into your thing if you wanted to, or you can pull some out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to just grab, like dip and get some paint. I don't want like a huge glob. You can see it's not a huge glob, but I do have some on the end there. I like to keep this kind of light and wispy. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to take my brush, and if yours is sitting flat like this, I like to kind of go straight up and down when I'm doing it and just kind of this like wispy way. But I'm going to just go right over the chalk line. Just light and wispy. Don't worry about your edges. You go the wide way with the paint and it should just make the line. It doesn't have to be perfect because we want it to be kind of this rusticy, messy look. Now for this one here, I'm just going to go back and forth. And you're going to go down the chalk line just a hair, because when you go back up, you want it to kind of create this little point right here. Your lines don't have to be equal. You just if you kind of just do this back and forth thing with your brush, just letting your brush make the width of it, that will be the easiest way. If you do end up with like thick lines of thick paint out here, you can just kind of smooth them out if you want it to be a little bit thicker. But I don't want the paint to be super thick on there. I'm just kind of just throwing some little lines on. If you're doing the brown, you are going to do the same thing. So you can either use whatever you have left on your palette paper, or you can dip right into your little thing. You can just grab some of the paint. And then right on your chalk line, you're just going to put that paint down. I think I made the brown one a little thicker only because I was only doing like 3 of them, but it probably just turned out that way because, you know, you're just kind of wisping it back and forth, but don't go over your pumpkin. So see here how I just stop right at the pumpkin, and then I'm going to come up over here and just start it right back up. but I'm just gonna avoid going over the pumpkin. Same with the black. When you come down on the edge, you're gonna have some little lines that are gonna be on the edge here. Just bring them up to the edge of your pumpkin, like this one right here. We want it to look like it's behind it. So you're gonna do one on this side and you'll do one over here on this side. And let's see here. I think there's up, down, up. I think I have one right here too. I mean, it's okay if you get a little bit inside of there, but you want to try to keep most of it outside. So you've got a few minutes to just kind of get that on there. I am going to attempt to do both of them. So hopefully I can keep up with you. Please let me know if you have questions though. And I do know that I apologize for this. I do know that I make things look really easy and I don't mean to. It's just because I've had lots of practice. And I also do tend to paint kind of fast. And that is because when I'm in the studio, I like to walk around and help people. So if you have a question, I am very happy to help you. Just let me know. And everything is fixable. So if you feel like you made a mistake, don't be embarrassed. Feel free to ask questions. When I talk about the jar, the I hate my painting jar, asking questions, asking for help is very different than complaining. So you can come on and say, you know, what can I do to help this? Without saying, I hate this, what can I do to make it better? You know, you can even say like, oh, I'm just not feeling it. What do you suggest? And I'm very happy to help as best as I can through the video. So. The other nice thing about having using chalk on here is now, like right now, we can still see all of our chalk lines behind that. But the chalk will just wipe off, like you noticed when we were doing the wiping off on here. So we can wipe the chalk lines off later once it's dry. Just want to make sure that it's dry before you start wiping off the chalk marks, because otherwise smearing can happen. Another thing that can tend to happen is if you're given too much time, then you can fuss with things and you can ruin a perfectly good thing. So I like to give you time to work, but I don't like to over give you too much time. But so when you feel like you're like, okay, I did it, it looks fine. You don't need to touch up the edges and make it look perfect or anything like that, because we're not working for perfection. We're just having some fun. Feel free then to just put your brush in your water and wash it off. That will help you stop messing with it if you need some help to stop messing with it. And I basically just want all of my lines to look generally similar from a distance. So like to you, all of my lines look really, really perfect, but they really aren't. I don't know if you can see close up. there's fuzz going along some of the lines. Not perfectly straight. They don't have to be. I will also just say, while you're doing this, some people, because we painted the edges gray, personally, even on these ones, I did not take the chevron around the edge. So that way it's just a solid color around the edge. So don't feel like you have to bring it around the edge. So I didn't do any of the tops. It's just that gray color or the brown color. Because we kind of start on like a downward sweep at the edge, it could be kind of tricky because you'd want to take it upwards on the side. And I did not do any of the edges. It's just the brown or the gray. So let me know when you get done with the chevron part by either like a thumbs up, or you can comment that you're finished. All right. Perfect. Thank you, Jean. Thanks, Reagan. Thanks, Don. Thanks, Tabby. Awesome. Sandy, Dory, where you at? You good? Okay, perfect. So now just put that flash, we're just gonna rinse this brush off because we are gonna use it to paint our next thing. So rinse it off as best as you can. And then I just like to wipe it on my paper towel. Now, one thing too that will extend the life of your brushes is instead of smushing it down like this to dry it, if you kind of lay it on its edge and pull towards you, so you're just keeping those bristles together, flipping it over back and forth like this, that will help keep your brush, the bristles in better condition for a longer period of time. And while I'm thinking about it, at the end of the class too, if you wash your brushes really good, I use Dawn dish soap to wash my brushes. I wash it really good, just kind of smooth out the bristles like this, and then just let it lay flat to dry. Then you can use this brush over and over and over. The only thing that I've noticed with these brushes that I send with the kits is that if they sit in water for too long, I mean, just sitting in water now is not going to make a big deal, but if they're like days sitting in water, then this is just like a plastic part. It's going to peel off of it because there's wood underneath there and they paint it. So I've cleaned my brush off, and what I'm going to do is based on the color pumpkin that you want to have, I'm going to pull those colors and I'm going to put a pretty good clump onto my palette paper. So if you're going to be using the yellow and the orange, you can use a popsicle stick to pull that out and get it up onto your palette paper. Or if you're using the teal, and honestly, I don't like, I'm going to use my yellow to pull out the orange. I don't really care if these colors mix like a lot. I just would rather, you just don't want like you don't want to get black in there with those colors right away. And a lot of times I'll just use my paper towel and I'll wipe off the end of the stick so that it's like clean. It's like brand new all over again. You can also pour it out if you want to, like the teal is. And I'm also going to put a little bit of white on because some of these colors are going to go on a little bit better if we mix a little white in with it. So I'm just going to put that on there. And then just put the lids back onto your paint so that way they stay fresh. And if you have any leftover paint, you can always use it to paint windows. Just like to suggest that. You can paint a pumpkin on your window or on something else. It doesn't really matter. So if you are doing the teal pumpkin, what I'm going to do is I am going to just dip into the teal color, and you want to get a good amount of paint on there. And I don't like to start right on the edge. I'm going to start more in the middle of the C, and I'm just going to brush it back and forth, kind of, I'll just kind of show you here. I keep the bristles together, like going this way and that way. Now, personally, I try to keep the C shape, but I don't keep the chalk line. So I'm just going to kind of brush it in this up and down motion, and I'm going to cover up the chalk line as I go. So I start with the thicker paint in the center, and then I kind of move it towards the outside so I don't get a thick ridge of paint going along the outside. So if you're doing the teal, you can start with that, and you're going to just do your entire pumpkin. Now, if you wanted to make, oh, I should say this too. Okay, I'm just gonna, with the teal, on the picture there in the background here, there are some darker, like shaded parts. So this is how I do that, is I'm going to take the back end of my brush, and I'm going to dip it into the black paint. So I have like a dot of black paint on there, and then dot it on your paper first. So, because you don't want a big chunk, I would suggest not dipping in. You might get too much if you dip it into the container. And you're going to put a little dot near the bottom, flip your brush around. So here I have, get nice and close. So one little dot while it's wet and the background is wet. I'm going to take my bristles then, and I'm just going to blend it in, and it will create a little darker shadow. So I do that as I go, just putting a little dot in, keeping that little shape that goes along with it. So here, if I do the middle, kind of start filling it in, and I fill in the whole thing first, and then you can take your little black, your little dot, and you can just kind of blend that in and see how it kind of creates this darker shadow. And you're just gonna keep filling in your pumpkin until the whole thing's done. Now, if you do one of the black and you don't like it, you can just take your paper towel and wipe it off right away. If you want it to be darker, add more. If you know, so you can adjust that, but I don't put the bristles in the black just because black can overtake things really easily. Now, if you're gonna do the orange pumpkin, the orange and the yellow color does not cover as well. So this is what I like to do is I'm going to take a good scoop of the orange, a pretty good scoop, and I'm going to start putting it on like this. And usually what happens is you can still see the gray background through it. So I'm going to then dip into the white paint and I'm going to add some white to it. The white is going to help make it a little bit more opaque, because we can go back over it with more orange when it dries, but you kind of have to cover it with this like orange and white mix first in order to allow the color to be brighter. Some people have painted the whole thing white first, like in the class that I had on Friday, but honestly, I feel like it looks better if you do this kind of orange mix. So I'm starting with the orange, and it's kind of like a neon orange. And the orange by itself is going to look really streaky. So you got to dip it into the white a little bit and add a little white to it while it's still wet. The white will help smooth it out. It will help reduce those streaks, and then do long, smooth brush strokes. Now, if you want yours to be more yellowy, you can even like, here, I'm just going to take a big scoop of the yellow. But again, the yellow is going to be pretty, it's more of a transparent color. Here, I'm just taking some yellow. Ooh, it's hurting my eyes. And then a little bit of white going over it. Because you have to have, no, you can do the center orange. I'm just saying, if you wanted yours to be more yellowy, because they're very neon. It's a very neon type of color. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the orange here. I'm gonna just put some orange over the yellow. Long brush strokes will help it look smoother, and adding a little white is just a little necessity at this point if you're doing the orange pumpkin. If you have your own supplies, or if you have orange paint at home and you just want to do it orange, you totally can. But with these bright kind of orangey colors that I chose for this one, they're just a little too see-through for a one coat like the teal. And honestly, the hardest thing is like, once you get it, get the paint on there and it's nice and smooth, just got to let it dry. It's a good time to go like change your water out if you need to. Because I know my water is pretty black from doing the black chevron stripes. Oops, cover up that. And again, just reach out, let me know if you have any questions on anything. I call the technique, and I don't know if it's even a technique. I've made it up myself. A dip and dot. So you're just gonna dip the back end into the black and then dot it on there to add a little bit at a time. I actually think I'm doing my chevron, the teal one is a little bit bigger than my sample picture, but it'll be fine. Also, just take a quick peek too. If your pumpkin is floating, you can always bring the paint down towards the end, towards the bottom of the canvas, and almost it's like here where I kept these little triangle parts right here where they curved up, but it's a little bit more flatter at the bottom. So just as I'm looking at the different ones, this one, just kind of gonna bring it down a little bit more. Now, even if you are doing the teal pumpkin and say the color got a little dark for you, we can always lighten it up by just adding a little white in there also. We will be doing some white highlights later, so you keep that in mind. And then if you're doing the orange pumpkin and you can still like see through it, or you're like, it's just not that great of coverage yet, don't fret. That's perfectly okay. We just want that to dry so that way we can do another layer over it if you would like. So I'm just gonna go rinse out my water really quick and I'll be back in a moment. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Also, just let me know when you get to the point that you're at this point. All right, thanks, Sarah. All right, thank you. Thanks, Reagan. Tori. I see ya. I don't know if you're over there, like on your screen, but that's where you are on my screens. Sometimes you move around, like not you specifically, but sometimes people move around on the screen. I'm like, wait, where did they go?
I'm a retired teacher, but I got to do preschool during the pandemic on Zoom. So it
Oh
is
my
quite
gosh.
entertaining watching people jump around.
Yes, I cannot imagine. Well, you're probably an angel to those kids who were, or to their parents at least. Oh, thanks, Don. So when we are at this point, what we're gonna do is pull this in closer. We're just gonna gently check out our chevron. My chevron is dry, specifically right above the. Oh, Dawn, you're totally fine. Just pulling the hair dryer out. So we basically just finished our pumpkins, so they still are wet, is what's happening. So what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna gently, and if you're not sure if it's dry or not, when it's wet, it is shiny, and when it's dry, it's gonna be matte. So if you don't want to touch it, otherwise just touch it right above where the stem is going to be, because that part is okay if you get a little fingerprint on it. Now at this point, if it is dry, it's probably going to be easiest to just take, now you could take a damp washcloth and just gently wipe off some of those lines that are there. The other thing that you can do is if you take your round paintbrush, because we haven't used it yet, dip it in the water, but then dry it off on your paper towel. So just by using like damp, so it's not wet, it's just damp, you can use that to just kind of touch the chalk and it will take that chalk off. But you don't want your brush to be wet. You just want to like dip it, but then dry it off. So you put some moisture on there. But I'm lazy and I don't have time to do that. So I just take a little paper towel and I'm just gonna wipe it. But if it's too close to your pumpkin, don't risk it, because you don't want to move that paint around. You just want to pull off some of those chalk lines. And later, if you see any chalk marks, if you just take a damp paper towel or a washcloth and just wipe it all off, but I would do that like later tomorrow when it's fully dry. Because right now, since we just painted it, you can use that technique if you're very light with it, because the paint, but you could risk pulling the paint off if you really scrub. So that's why it's very lightly. But I'm gonna grab my chalk again, because we can put on a little stem on top of these. Now, I'm going to show you the samples because the stems are different on them. So the teal pumpkin has more of it's fatter down here in the center, and then it's just going to like kind of go up. But you can do your stem however you want to. This one on the orange one, I put a little curl in the top of it. It's kind of hard to see. But a little curl, it's almost like a little question mark, if you think of that. But I don't do, when I'm doing the stem, I'm not gonna necessarily do the outside of it, like this part. I don't like to draw lines like that. I like to do a line right through the center. So if I wanted to create this one, like this, I'm gonna do a little loop-de-loop, like a little question mark almost at the top, kind of like that. And I'm just gonna bring it right down into the middle because the paint will widen it as we go. The thing that you could do is you could like keep this part up here really skinny, and then as it comes down, you could just kind of widen it where it's almost like a little triangle. If you need that visual help to draw that out first. And then on this one, I'm just gonna start in the middle and I'm just gonna draw a little line that goes straight up and then just kind of a little whoosh. So it's just like a little whoosh going up. And then if you wanted to widen it, because this one here does have a wider base, when I kind of get to that little curve, I'm gonna widen it more like that. So it comes closer out to the edges. The nice thing about doing it with the chalk is if you did need to make a correction to it, you can just take a dry paper towel even, and you can just wipe it off and redo it. Now, the reason like the dry one, it will still kind of leave a chalky residue there, but you can totally do that if you would like. Or if you want it to be, I mean, I'll make mine a little bit taller maybe. Ooh, it's gonna be a big tall one. I'm just playing. I don't know. You know, it's fun to just have fun with it. And then now at this point, we're just gonna draw them. We're not gonna like paint them in yet, but we are gonna do some of our fun, like while we're waiting for this part here to dry, we're gonna do some fun things in like back on the chevron, but at least we know where this is. So when we're ready to paint it, we can. So I'm just gonna grab some paint here. Now for this part, we're gonna use our round brush. So we're gonna grab our little round brush. And when we're using a round brush, we wanna make sure that we keep it kind of like a ballerina. So you want it to be up on its toes when you're using it. And if you're using yours flat, I usually keep mine pretty straight up and down. Like think of a ballerina. It's like up on its toes. It has very good posture. I'm not like this where I'm laying like a pen, like when you're writing. It's much more up and down because the motion that I want to do is this like dancing where it's very like wispy back and forth and where you can keep it really light. So this way I can start to go back and forth, bring it down, and then eventually just the tip is touching it back and forth. If you're going like this, it's you lose your range of motion on how far you can be with your wisps. If that makes sense. So for the, okay, we're all gonna do white first. So to do this, because we're just using white, you can dip right into your little container. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip into it, and I don't wanna have a big chunk like this. So after I dip into it, find an edge and you're gonna kind of twirl it around and then like sweep off all the extra paint. So it's like you're wiping it off, but I'm moving it in a circular motion because you wanna keep a point to it. See, there's kind of a little point on it, but wipe off all that paint. We just want a little hint of white on it. Now, if you're worried that it's too painty still, what you can do is take your paper towel and get really close and just start doing this little wisp. So you kind of wipe off the tip of it a little bit. Just the tip. I'm not really pressing down. It's just taking the tip off, or like the thickness. Then what I'm going to do is on these, let me just show you the examples again really quick. So on this one, I don't do it right. Well, I guess I am kind of like right in here. I'm not going right through the center. I'm kind of doing a little wisp on the outside and a little bit kind of on the line. So that way it's kind of makes it look nicer. Like, oh, look, it looks smoother there because I just did a little wisp. There's some places where I did get it right in the middle of the line, but that, you know, because I was just having fun just wisping away. So I'm trying to do it more on the edge and in this gray area. For the brown one, I also tried to do it along the edge, but then I started getting some in the middle and I kind of liked how it looked going right through the middle. So you can kind of play around. I also have it going through the middle of the brown. So this is how I do it. Again, you can kind of start, remember, straight up and down, getting closer and closer. And then I'm just going to do like little wisps. Now remember, I dipped it and then I kind of wiped all the paint off. So I barely have any on there. So you're just getting little hints of it. And you can, if you want to see it more, you can do it more in the black area. I'm going to try to make mine a little bit more defined so you can see it better. But you can even do it like going all through your gray area. You can even go over your little chalk lines. Even the parts that are kind of going down the edge, kind of want to get little wisps in here because you want it to look like you didn't forget a part. And then for the brown one, I'm going to do the same thing. So you can dip right into the white, kind of wipe off the extra, twirl it around in a circular way so you can get that little point back on it. And then I'm just gonna, you know, you could almost even just go like straight down. Just don't go over your pumpkin. But trying to put some little white streaks in all the little parts there. If your streaks get really dark, that's okay. You can always go back over them with brown if you need to. I always like to include a little extra paint. So hopefully, I always get worried though too that you guys aren't going to have enough paint. Even though sometimes when you get it and you're like, is that going to be enough? I think usually everyone has always had enough paint. I can't be sure, but I'm pretty, no one's complained. So here's the brown one. You can see where I put all of my white strokes kind of everywhere, but still going in that chevron direction. And then here's my black one and the gray one. Didn't do quite as many going through. Oh, well, there, I just did one right through it just to make it look more even. Now, I don't want to give you too much time because then you're just going to keep going over it with white and white. So once you have, like on the gray one, once you have that one done, I don't wash my brush in between, but what I'm going to do is then you can grab out that little purple that you have and you can just put the little tip in there and twist it around, wipe it off so it's not too much. And then I put the purple showed up the best more in the gray area. And if you put it over a place where there's white, it might show up even better. So I'm just gonna do the same thing, kind of wisp the purple. And it will look pretty light at first. Where did I put it? So little, I lost it. Here we are. It might look pretty light at first, but the goal of the purple isn't to like stand out. It's more to be like a hint in the background. Like it's there. And when you're doing this too, because we drew out our stem, you can go right over it. Like just pretend it's not even there. And if you're doing the teal one, what I did with that is I used a little bit of teal because, you know, if you pick the teal pumpkin, everyone kept saying the teal is like their vibe. But see how there is, if you look really close up, there's some teal streaks through there too. It kind of brings the whole thing together. So if you wanted to do some little teal streaks, then you can. I didn't do the teal in the brown, in the dark brown. I only did them in the lighter brown. Of course, you can do them wherever you would like. And again, you want to make sure that you're wiping off any like dip in the paint, but then act like you're wiping it off because you really don't want a whole lot of paint on there. You want just a tiny little hint of it. So even like wipe it off on your paper towel, maybe even a little bit. So you just get a little hint of the teal. Unless you want it really dark. Then you can put it on there however you want to. And I don't know if I said this earlier or not, but if I'm demonstrating something and you don't want to do it, you don't have to. Like you make, this is your painting. So if you're like, I don't want to do the teal, you don't have to. Totally, it's up to you however you want to do it. And then I will just say also, if you are doing the orange pumpkin and you're done doing that with the white and the purple, you can do another layer with your orange now, because most of the teal people won't have to do a second coat, but I think the orange people will want to. And this is really then where I'll add more of the yellow. So I'm just gonna dip into the orange. Just go right over what you did. It's going to really be a lot brighter. You won't have to add like white this time unless you want to. But what I'll do when I'm doing it with the orange now is I'll add the orange and then I'll just take a little dip in the yellow and I'll just put that right, like little streaks in there. I do more like yellow streaks than white streaks. If you're happy with your orange pumpkin just as it is, you don't have to do this. But the orange and the yellow colors don't cover as well as the teal. So you may want to add a second coat. And if you like it that lighter color with the white, you can totally add more white or just keep it as it is. I'm just going to use orange and yellow. Maybe I'll use a little white. I don't know. It's so hard to decide. Well, I think maybe I do like it with the white. Ooh, that one got a little too white. Again, let me know if you have any questions on anything. So when you are done and caught up to this point, let me know. So that would be doing the chevron streak part and the orange part, if you're doing an orange pumpkin. I was gonna look and see, because I think a lot of you are doing the orange one. Nope, a couple of you doing the teal one. Orange, orange. Teal, orange. Well, it's like a mix. You guys are like a perfect mix. And there's a cute dog over there too. Oh. Oh. I think about doing these classes at my house. But the problem is then if I am not, when I am at home, if I am not sitting on the couch with my dogs, they will cry at me the whole time. So I have to come here because otherwise I'll have one that will like be barking at like the wind blowing out of the window. And so they're just too needy for me to be there to, you know, that's why also I don't record a whole lot at home. And you can also, in a lot of my videos, if you are watching me on TikTok, when I'm doing voiceovers, I'm sitting on the couch and I have one dog that's just really like restless. I can always hear his little clicking beat like in the background. And then sometimes you can hear my other dog, Lady, she's just snoring in the background. So, you know, I wish I could bring them here with me, but this is sometimes a nice break from them. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Reagan. Oh, one thing too, if you are doing the teal pumpkin, I just realized, so we did the white streaks and the teal streaks, but I actually did a little bit with black also. See that? So if you wanted to do it with black, you're welcome to. If you're worried because you feel like your other colors, like you were too heavy-handed and so your lines got really thick and really dark, then you don't have to do the black if you don't want to. Just keep that in mind. But when I do it, again, kind of wipe it off or even wipe it on your paper towel. So that way you barely have any on there. And then I'm just gonna kind of do a little bit, kind of more so keeping it on the chevron lines. Like I'm still gonna be wispy, but I'm gonna try to keep it closer to the line. Maybe a little bit in the brown part. Not doing the whole thing, just kind of little bits here and there. So it looks kind of whimsical, wispy. So on this one here, I did some black and you can see I didn't like outline the whole thing, but just kind of some just little wisps here and there. Uh-oh, what did I do? Okay. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is take, now you can take your round brush if you want to, the one that we've been using to do our little sweeps of color. And we're gonna work on our stems before we do our outlining of our pumpkins. So this time, because, let's see here. I'm gonna do my stems mostly black. I might add a little bit of white highlight to them later, but I'm gonna dip into the black, but it's hard to get like, because sometimes you get like a big chunk on there. So just kind of take some of that off so it's not super thick. And then instead of going up and down like a ballerina for this one, this part might be easier if you almost like lay the tip into the point and then pull it in the direction you want it to go. So I'm kind of laying it down to get that point, and then I'm gonna just pull it down into the direction I want it to go. Now, if you're gonna be on this one here with the little curve at the top, you probably will have to do more of that ballerina straight up and down, but you could also kind of lay it down a little bit to get that little tip in there, but then you're gonna have to move your brush around. Like, it's okay, you have to kind of move it all around. If it starts to go wonky on you, just pick it up right away. Don't keep going with it. But I think it's a little bit easier to keep it more like a ballerina when it's that curly cue. But if it's just doing a straight line, you can kind of lay it down and pull it. And then I'm just make sure that you stop right at the top part of your pumpkin. So I'm gonna just kind of stop right near the top and then just fill all that part in. If you would prefer that your stems are a little bit more gray than just pure black, then you can grab some white. Now I still have white on my palette paper because I don't want to dip my black brush into the white, but if you wanted it to be a little bit more, now the black is still pretty wet. So if I just kind of go back and forth, it will eventually turn more of a gray color. if you want it more gray. Same with the teal pumpkin. Oops, I think I maybe got that one a little too gray. I took a big chunk of white because I was just trying to show you. But now I'm going to take some more black and go over that a little bit. But we'll do some actual like highlighting with white later. Yes, we are doing stems. So I just painted mine black. If you want them a little bit more gray, then you can add in a little bit of white. I always feel like once we start getting to this point of a painting, and this happens in the studio a lot too, they tend to be at different places. So if for some reason I go too fast and you miss something, I am very happy to re-explain it also. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, she already talked about that and I missed it because I wasn't quite there yet. So, oh, for vines. So I will tell you that I did not add additional vines to mine, but you can if you want to. Let me show you some examples. I have some paintings around here that have vines. So I have this one here. It's got lots of curlicues, kind of going a little wonky everywhere. So one thing to think about when you're doing little curves coming from the stem is it can be the letter E, a cursive letter E. So think of the cursive letter E if you wanted to do a little curlicue. This one here, I kind of did a cursive letter E that went into a capital letter L. Let me just kind of show you on a thing here. Hold on, let me find my chalk. See if I can do this. Hang on a second. I'm just gonna, I like to demonstrate things on my wall. I just have to pick up some things here. Okay, so I'm just gonna move you for a really quick second. So, quartz. So let me just see where we're at here. Okay, so I'm gonna have a little pumpkin here. I'm just gonna draw it out really quick. Okay, and then you have your little thing. So to do like a little curlicue, so you can see better, you can do So coming from your stem here, you can do the cursive letter E like that, if you want it to just go out. But then you can also turn that, if you like it like that, one, the cursive letter E can turn into a capital letter L. So if this part right here, see, it's like a capital L. I don't know if it's flipped for you or not, but that's supposed to look like an L. Capital letter. You just kind of connect it. The other thing is you can also do just like just things like that, or you can even just do curly cues. Now, don't feel like you have to do that. I didn't want to do it in mine because I didn't want to make it too complicated for anyone. But if you wanted to do it, you can chalk it in there first. So that way you can kind of know where you're going. I almost spilled my paint there. So that is just some little ideas if you wanted to add additional vines. It's all the behind the scenes stuff that you guys don't see with all my cords and everything. I have to use my laptop, so it's like in a different spot. So I have to have the cord to the laptop so that way the battery doesn't die. But I don't have an outlet that's close enough, so I have an extension cord plugged into that. And then I have a tripod that it's all sitting on, and then all my paint stuff. Kind of a mess everywhere. All right. So besides the viney part, because a lot of that stuff too, you guys can do off of camera when we, like you can add the vines a little bit later also. But are most people, like, let me know, are you here where we're ready to do the outlining? Yes. Okay. I'm seeing some heads shaking and some thumbs up. Perfect. All right. Because it's almost 8 o'clock and I know that your time is precious too. And so I would like to be done right around then. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab my round brush. So you're going to grab your round brush, and now it had black on it and I'm going to put black on it again. So, but it was in my water. So what I'm going to do now, same thing when we were kind of doing some of these wisps, is you can dip into your container if you want to. And I'm just going to kind of wipe off most of the paint, or wipe it on your paper towel because you don't want a whole lot. Now, even though we drew the pumpkins out as a circle in the letter C, you don't necessarily have to do it that way, because if you look at these ones, it's there, but it's not a complete circle. There's shadows there, but I didn't actually make the full circle. So on this one here, see, it's not a full circle, but it's kind of there. So how I like to start doing that is I want to get my brush in that wispy back and forth mode. Is I'm just going to create like a little rainbow at the top where it's just like that. So you're just doing a rainbow, the top of the O. Light and wispy, so it can actually even get a little hazy as it's coming down the edge. And I try to keep that still though on that original O. Now, one thing I do outline is I do outline the outside C's. I'm gonna pull you in closer here. Again, if you take your brush straight up and down like a ballerina and just apply really light pressure so only the tip touches it, then I'm holding my breath as I'm doing it because I'm trying to be careful, that happens sometimes. It's okay if your line gets really thick, or if, you miss the edge a little bit and there's a little orange on the outside or blue on the outside. But you're going to do your outside outline as a whole. So I'm going to outline the whole thing of the outside C's, the main C and the backward C. And then even kind of along the bottom and just bringing it up to where that C kind of meets the O, even though we don't have the whole O outlined. And then I'm just going to do the bottom part of the O, and you can actually even fill in those triangles with all black down there if you want to. And then same for the teal. I'm just going to outline the outside. So just outlining. Tabby, I just saw you were in the waiting room, so I'm so sorry. Hopefully you weren't waiting for too long. So we are just, I see that you sent me a message too. So right now we are just taking our black and we're just doing the rainbow part of the O. And then we're just going to be outlining the outside edges of our C's. If you missed something, let me know. Now, a lot of times, some people feel like if their lines get too thick, it's going to ruin it. But in my experience, thicker black lines just make it look more dramatic, which isn't a bad thing. I think even like when I do my sunflower paintings, I always think that the people who are really heavy-handed on their outlining of the sunflowers, I think that theirs look amazing, but it is a style. Some people really like the really light, tiny lines, and some people are just a little heavier handed. So either way is going to be totally fine. So don't get nervous if you're like, oh my gosh, my lines are so thick. So once I have this outline done, so I've done kind of this little rainbow along the top, even on the bottom part. Now it's almost like you're going to do an O, like think of where your O is, but you're not necessarily going to connect it or draw the whole O. But even at the bottom, I still want to kind of create a U that could connect with the rainbow at the top. Or if it's really hard to do it more like a U, you can flip it upside down and then you can make a little rainbow. It's okay to to paint upside down. And then I always kind of joke because this is kind of like Bob Ross used to say, like the bravery test, who's brave enough? Because now this is a little weird trick that actually works. So I put a lot of black lines in my painting, and I'm going to show you on the blue one, kind of how I do it, is I'm just going to kind of keeping kind of this C-ish shape and the O shape. I'm just going to take some light brush strokes and just kind of like boop, pop some in like that, random places. But here is the trick that this is what happens is a lot of people get really nervous. So they're like, I'm going to go really slow and I'm so timid and I'm scared. And then their line will actually look like they're scared because it's kind of shaky. They don't, it's like an unsure line. If you pretend that you're confident and just do it wherever they end up, wherever they end up, we're just going to do it. It is amazing how, okay, it may not be perfect and that's totally fine, but I can come back and I can add more teal to it and put white over it and adjust it if I wanted to. So just, and it's a little trick, but it does kind of work actually. Just kind of pop in some lines. Now you don't have to do the extra lines, but I like to do it with black. And then I'm gonna clean my brush off and I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna do it with some white also. Just kind of throw some white in there. And I honestly, like, I try to not even think about where they're going. So I might even go over a black line by accident because I am not even really thinking about where those black lines are. And one of the nice things about being able to do this at home is because you have all of those supplies there. You can even wait for it to dry. If you get too many lines, if I want to come back with just some teal paint, I can do the teal right over the black and it will just hide it. So you can just take the teal, go right over a black line and it will just cover it up and it will look like one of those shadows if you feel like your black lines got a little out of hand. Now the orange one might need a little bit more work covering up the black lines, but it's the same process. You can still put some white over those black lines to hide them a little bit if you want to. I mean, you could even have like one of your lines connecting a lot more than other ones. The other thing is if you're worried about your outside lines getting too thick, once that black paint dries, you can go back over it with the color of your pumpkin, teal, and that will just kind of paint the teal halfway over the black line. Just little tips to help you, adjust your painting. Because a lot of times when I'm here and I'm painting a picture, I like to let it sit out for a while so I can adjust it if I want to. But remember, it's not about being perfect. It's just about having fun. The other thing is if your stem is kind of blending in with the background, you can take just some pure white and you can put a little bit of white on the tip of your stem and the top of it, almost like a little outline there on the teal one, just kind of coming down the top part of the top part of the stem, or even on your curlicue where just like kind of the top part where the light might be, to kind of pull out that little curl a little bit more. And when I'm doing the white highlights and things like that, I usually leave the paint on there pretty thick. Like I don't typically blend it in. If it's really, really thick in some places, then maybe I would come back and just smooth it out. But so excited to see how you guys are doing. Oh, I love it. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Wow, you're fancy, fancy. no, don't feel like you have to show it off, but you know, sometimes in the past we've done a group picture. Ooh, that looks beautiful. Oh, look at that. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love all your swirls in the background too. Very nice. How do you send a picture? So you could take a picture and email it to me. Carrie, that looks so good. Oh my gosh. If you are able to turn on your camera on your whatever device you're on too, I know that there's a way to do screenshots, but I still haven't figured it out because I don't know how to do that. But what I'll normally do is I'll take a picture with my phone when everyone is kind of ready to show yourself and what I'm gonna do right now. Oh, Reagan. Oh, I saw it and then, oh, there you are. That looks amazing. Very cool. Wow. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the recording because all of the instructional stuff. Oh, wait, the last thing that you can do is sign your masterpiece. Okay, so my suggestion for signing it would be to practice on either your palette paper or a paper plate or something before you do it on your canvas. I also suggest Sharpies are great for signing artwork if you don't want to use a paintbrush. Or if you have like paint pens, those also work well. But I personally always think it's great to sign your piece if you want to, but you don't have to even sign it on the front. On my pieces, I like to just sign it maybe in the bottom of the pumpkin, depending on how much room you have. You could even put it down on the bottom of your, like under your chevron in the outside part. But you can also sign it on the side. Some people will sign it on the back. So you can really sign it anywhere you would like. But if people are done and you wanted to, I know I'm like weird here because I'm like, oh, let's all like show our pictures. And if you don't feel comfortable showing your picture, you don't have to. But Reagan, did you want to pop on? Jean or Don? Take a little group picture. I gotta like, it's so weird to be on my phone to do this though too. I feel bad. All right. Are you other ladies gonna come out? It's okay if you don't want to. Just thought I would ask. Okay, I'll do one more and then I'll do a little countdown. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Perfect. And if you did not decide to show yourself, that's totally fine too. And if you want to send a picture via email, or you can send it to me online through like Instagram or through my email or through however you want to, Facebook. I take pictures anywhere.
What's the email?
It would be iHeartArtStudios with an S at the end @gmail.com.
Thank you. iHeartArtStudios@gmail.
Yes, and it's all just spelled out, all smushed together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna end the recording because I think I said I was gonna do that and then I never did. Oh, nope. What did I do? There we go. Oh, what did I stop my picture? That's what I stopped. Hold on. There I am. Okay. All right. For those of you who are watching the recorded version, thank you so much for watching. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. All right. Now I'm going to end the recording. Should you want to stop the recording?